Hello and welcome to my Yu-Gi-Oh channel. Please make sure to like the video if you've enjoyed it and don't forget to subscribe. So today I'm going to be reviewing the brand new mini box as of which has been released at the beginning of September, and it's for Duel Links, as I said. It's called Arena of Sanctuary. In this video we'll be covering the 3 ultra rare cards and just give you a bit of an opinion on those. So the first card is Trishula, Dragon of the Icy Imprisonment. It's a Water Dragon Fusion effect monster. It's level 9 with 2,700 attack and 2,000 defense. Its fusion requirements are 3 monsters with different names, and its effect is must first be either fusion summoned using only monsters in your hand and or field, or special summoned from your extra deck by banishing the above cards you control, in which case you do not use polymerization. If this card was special summoned using only monsters that were originally dragons, you can reveal and banish 3 cards, 1 from your deck, 1 from the top of your opponent's deck, and 1 from their extra deck. You can only use this effect of Trishula, the Dragon of Icy Imprisonment, once per turn. So I think this card is quite useful within the game. You can only have up to 6 extra deck monsters, provided you get up to a certain level. I think it starts off at 5, but if you reach above, say, level 10, in terms of the experience in playing, you get rewarded with that additional extra deck slot. So potentially, if you can get if you can get 3 copies of this out, you can wipe out half of your opponent's extra deck. And depending on what they're running, there are certain cards that will be more critical. For example, in things like Super Heavy Samurais, I know that is quite popular at the moment and quite competitive within Duel Links. That has certain level monsters, and if you get rid of certain ones, for example, there's one that actually attacks directly, which has 2,800 attack, and the thing is, if it was to be paired with things such as, there's the Soul Piercer, which does basically lets you attack twice, and there's another one that boosts its defense points by 1,200, making sure that they actually can get over your monsters without actually essentially having to deal with your monsters. Using this will be critical for decks such as that. Its summoning condition isn't too bad, considering that you can actually just use the cards you already control. It doesn't require you to use polymerization, unlike things like many of the elemental heroes, which is the downside of them. Although it does only get its effect when it's special summoned using dragons. So unless you're running a specific dragon type deck, I would advise not really using this. There are much better options out there, and even if you don't really need to run an extra deck, it's better maybe not to even bother using this card. Overall, I can see why it's come into the game. I mean, they've got now the release of the brand new Ice Barrier cards as well. It's a way of trying to attract both the Duel Links people who are maybe more casual players, or even some of the competitive players who focus on the Duel Links and the digital side of it, versus some of the physical card players and those that prefer to do it the traditional route. I can see its benefits, but also I just don't think it's worth using as of now, unless you have a specific build attached to it. Now, for Valkyrie Brunhild, which is the second monster, I have been playtesting the Valkyries. They're not too bad. I actually think they've got quite decent removal from, their Valkyrie Temperance and some of the other cards which are able to actually banish, or even like deck destruction with the level 1 monster. Out of them, I would say, out of kind of like what I would define as the boss monsters, you've got Sigrun, you've got Urda, and then you've got Brunhild. I would say this is the least viable of the 3 for a couple of reasons. I've noticed if I run multiple of these, I tend to brick quite heavily. It's also quite difficult if you've got Zweit as well, because that's a level 5. Unless you're running specific cards in order to, summon these a bit easier, such as, I don't know, you've recently had the introduction of Star Blast into this, so you could run this a little bit more consistently. I would still advise only running 1, because it just clogs up the hand far too much. It's a light attribute fairy type level 7 monster with 1800 attack and 2000 defense. The effect is it's unaffected by your opponent's spell effects, and it gains 500 attack for each monster your opponent controls. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can have this card lose exactly 1000 defense, and if you do, your Valkyrie monsters cannot be destroyed by battle this turn. So I'm going to break down the effects. First, the ability to be unaffected by your opponent's spell effects is massive. Traditionally, there are cards that don't let you, for example, Wild Heart, that don't allow the use of even your own trap effect on that monster. By limiting it to the restriction of your opponent, you can still equip things to it, so United We Stand, Power of the Guardians, Mage Power, and so on. So you can get the actual boosts and benefits of those cards, and your opponent isn't able to just automatically out this with whatever they have. That's kind of the benefit of this card. The other thing I'd say is, actually, if your opponent has an established board, this card could become up to a 3,300 attack monster. At worst, it stays at 1,800 if your opponent doesn't have anything on the field, but, likely is it's at least going to be 2,300. And it actually responds to your opponent attacking some of your monsters, because in some cases they might not necessarily be able to get over this immediately. They might actually want to target some of your other cards to get rid of them and then focus on this as like a last result. By being able to actually protect those monsters from being destroyed in battle, you can do that twice. It has 2,000 defense. Of course, if you actually have things such as Power of the Guardian that could boost its defense stat up as well, this can be used multiple times beyond that. But it's definitely something I would consider at least running one of. I just wouldn't consider running any more of. And the final card we have here is Karakuri Bones MDL N9763 Kunamzan. It's an Earth Machine level 5 monster with 2000 attack and 1500 defense. Its effect is this card must attack if able. If this card is targeted for an attack, you can change the battle position of this card. If this card is in your hand, you can target one Karakuri monster you control, change its battle position, and if you do, special summon this card as a tuner. Also, you cannot special summon monsters from the extra deck for the rest of this turn, except Earth Machine monsters. You can only use this effect of itself once per turn. This card is crucial for the Karakuri archetype. The reason being is they actually deal with a lot of battle position manipulation, so always they're looking at either changing your battle positions or changing your opponent's. This can be effective when you consider that not every deck has a response to this. Not only that, but certain monsters are very attack or defense heavy. Changing their battle mode might make them more susceptible to being just run over. The other thing is the Karakuri archetype focuses on the synchro monsters. So making this be treated as a tuner means you can actually go into some of your other Karakuri synchro monsters. It being a level 5 means that it can actually go into some of its higher boss monsters, and the restriction on only being able to summon from the extra deck Earth Machine monsters isn't a problem. All of their synchro monsters meet this requirement, and this is only a restriction on it just so it doesn't become too broken to be used. So what do you think of these three cards? Personally for me, I think that they're okay for being put in the top spot as the ultra rares. I can see out of them, my favourite is Brunhild, but I will admit I am biased. I like the Valkyries. I am very disappointed that they didn't add the 3 goddess cards, the continuous spells. But again, I think that's more to do with the fact you've got 3 spell and trap zones, which means if you run these, you're either going to brick very heavily, or you're going to only be able to use maybe a couple of them. Of course, they search each other out, but the problem is, they take up the slots, and also if you get rid of one, the whole sequencing of their effects is meant to work with each other. You get rid of one, it makes it more difficult to successfully use the effects of the others. Whatever you think of these 3 cards, leave your comments down below, like the video if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to subscribe.